Two little girls were dancing in their house, when one of them ends up getting hurt. The other little girl then notices that and asks if her sister is okay. She then says no, as her nose was bleeding. The sister then says that she would go get something to wipe her nose. She then comes back with a paper and hands it to her sister. The sister then asks if the girl's nose has stopped bleeding. She says yes and tells her sister to get back to dancing. They then go back to dancing and having fun together. Later, they were playing around with some makeup. The girl then puts lipstick on her sister and tells her that she looks beautiful. The girl said her sister looked like their doll, and the sister says they looked very beautiful. At that moment, their mother comes home and then they run to her. They go to their mother, but the woman tells them to stop talking as she was on the phone. She then apologizes to the person who was talking on the phone and says that her daughters were disturbing her. The children then go to sit on the couch while the mother finishes talking on the phone. She sits down and starts working on her computer. At this point, the children go up to their mother and ask what she was doing. The woman said she was working, and the sister said she needed to tell her what had happened in her day. Their mother then says that she didn't want to know about it and says that she was working. The little girl is saddened by this and says that her mother never had time to spend with them. The girl tells her sister that her mother was working, and her mother says that she was ungrateful. She says that if she didn't work, her daughter wouldn't have anything to eat and she wouldn't have the internet to dance all day. She then tells the girl to take her sister to her room as she was working. The sister says that she didn't need anyone to take her to her room, as she could go alone. The girl then kisses her mother and goes to where her sister was. Later, the little girl is sitting on her bed when she sees her mother getting ready. She said that when she grew up, she wanted to be like her mother, a very beautiful woman who always dressed very well. The woman appreciates her daughter's praise, and then the little girl asks her mother when she would have time to be with them. At that moment, the woman realizes that she was late. She then tells her daughter that she should remember not to mess with things she couldn't handle, and that if she needed any help she could call her mother. She then says goodbye to her daughter and leaves. The girl then tells her sister that it was just them now. She then lays down next to her sister, who was sleeping. Sometime later, the two were dancing again when the little girl started having pains in her head. She then goes back to dancing, but soon her nose starts to bleed. Her sister then goes to the bathroom and gets some paper so she can wipe her nose. The little girl then says she wasn't feeling well, and at that moment she ends up fainting. Her sister is desperate and tries to wake her up, but is unsuccessful. She then asks her sister not to leave her alone, as she didn't want to be alone there. She then tries to wake her sister up, but the little girl doesn't respond. She starts rocking the little girl as she cries, asking her not to abandon her. She asks her sister not to leave her, as she doesn't want to be alone. She then gets up and goes to her cell phone. She calls her mother and tells her that she needed to come home right now. She said it was urgent as her sister had fainted and her mother needs to help her. She then goes back to trying to wake her sister, but she remains unresponsive. She tells her sister to stay calm, because her mother was already arriving home. At this moment, the kitten wakes up and asks what happened. She says her head was hurting a lot. Her sister said she was afraid something had happened to her as she had fainted. She then asks her sister not to abandon her, as she doesn't want to be alone. At that moment, her mother comes home desperate and asks if her daughter was okay. The sister then says that she had been scared because her sister had fainted. The mother of the guarantee then said that she would take her to the hospital and asks if her daughter could stay home alone. She says yes, that she would call her mother if she had any problems. The little girl then said that her mother didn't need to worry about her, as she had to work, but the mother said that the important thing now was her daughter's health. At the hospital, the mother was wondering where the doctor was. She then asks if her daughter was okay. The little girl tells her mom not to worry, medical stuff would be coming soon. The woman then says that she would calm down, but she is worried that the doctor was not there yet. At this moment, the doctor arrives and greets them. The woman then says she was glad the doctor was there and asks her to help her daughter. The doctor then tells the woman to calm down. She then tells the woman to wait in reception, that when she's done with the tests and determines that the little girl has it, she'll go to her and tell her. The woman says that she needed to know right away what her daughter had, but the doctor tells her to calm down and wait for her at the reception. The woman says she would and then says goodbye to her daughter. She tells her daughter that she would wait for her at the reception. The doctor then goes to the little girl and asks what she was feeling. She says that sometimes her nose bleeds, it goes, so she ended up passing out. She said that's what happened that day, her nose bled and she fainted. The doctor then tells the little girl to take a deep breath as she would be checked for her lungs. She then proceeds to examine the little girl's lungs, and then she says that now she would squeeze her belly a little. She says that the little girl might feel a little uncomfortable, but that it was necessary for the exam. The little girl then said that it was hurting where the doctor was squeezing it, and then she asks if the other side hurts too, but she says no. The doctor then says that she could rest now, as she would go through the girl's exams. The little girl then says that she would go get some sleep as she was feeling very sleepy. The doctor then tells her to rest and that the nurse will come to see her soon. Meanwhile, the little girl's mother was impatient at the front desk. The doctor then calls poor Ella so they can talk. She then tells the little girl's mother that her exams had come out and that she had a blood disease. The mother then starts to get desperate and asks what her daughter had, because she needed to know. The doctor then says that what the little girl had was serious. The doctor says that she needed the woman to be strong at that moment, and the woman asks what her daughter had. The doctor then says that unfortunately, what her daughter had was cancer. This makes the woman desperate, and she asks the doctor to say that what her daughter had was not so serious, that she could be cured if she did the right treatments. The doctor then says that, unfortunately, what the woman's daughter had was very serious and that she only had a few days to live. This makes the woman extremely sad and she begins to despair for her daughter. The doctor then says that, at that moment, the woman needed to be very strong for her and her daughter. Desperate, the woman wonders what she was going to do now. She then asks the doctor to leave her alone for a moment. The doctor then said that she would leave her alone and that she would come back later. The woman then starts crying and remembers that her daughter had asked her mother to pay more attention to her. She said that she should have done it and that she shouldn't have been so focused on work. She then asks God to help her and save her daughter. They were then returning home when the little girl asks why her mother is crying. The woman said it was nothing and that she shouldn't worry about it. Sometime later, they were together playing in a park. They were having so much fun playing in the park. Later, the woman tells her daughters that she was going to start counting and that at that moment, her daughter should hide. The woman then closes her eyes and starts counting, and meanwhile her daughters start to hide from her. She then finishes counting, then says she would look for her daughters. She starts looking for her daughters, but soon she finds them. She laughs and says her daughters should hide better, then hugs them. Later, they were playing and they seemed to be very happy together. Later, the little girl tells her mother that she was in a lot of pain. The woman then cries and asks her daughter to talk to her. The little girl says that she wanted to stay with her mother and that she didn't want to leave. The woman cries and asks her daughter not to leave her. She then asks God to help her at that moment. The little girl then starts to cry. Later she is gone. The woman starts crying there and says she couldn't lose her daughter. She then said that she wanted to spend more time with her daughter. Her other daughter goes to her and the two start crying together. The woman hugs her daughter and asks her to forgive her for not being a good mother and not paying attention to her. They stand there sad and crying for the loss of the little girl,